What's up, everyone? This is In Camp Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Hepler. Today on the show, I have a very close buddy of mine. I think you've probably heard of him, the man, Chad Sylvester. A lot of people have been asking me, what's Chad up to? Do you know what he's up to? We're going to talk a little bit about that in the beginning, so you can get like a brief, but who cares what he's doing? We want to know what he's going to continue doing, what he's doing in his hunting life. Chad is a closet big buck killer. He doesn't talk about the stuff he shoots a lot, but Chad hunts his feet off, especially when it comes to elk hunting. And the most important part of understanding that is there is not anybody that I know that's harder working or more resilient than Chad when it comes to doing tough, especially tough physical things. So you're going to want to hear this episode because you're just going to learn a lot about a hunting mentality. We do talk about Western strategy and some whitetail stuff. You're going to hear some really cool stories from Chad's last season that you won't want to miss. Some of it's a comical because I can't imagine Chad being scared, but I think there was a moment in one of these stories that he was. So thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the show. This is In Camp Podcast. People are always asking me, what's Chad up to? What's Chad up to? How's the new gig, man? You loving it?
I can't say that I'm loving it, right? Because like the transition has been amazing. I'll say that. Like to go to work for someone else and yet still have the freedom to run the business like it is your own business. Like no set hours, no reporting to up the chain of command. It's like you're the guy that we trust. You're the decision maker. You go make this thing work. So in that sense, it's been damn good.
Yeah.
But it's still different, right? Like firearms, I have enough interest in firearms to where I get like on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm at like a 6 on the passion or excitement level, right? So like it's a lot different than coming from the trail camera archery world where it's whitetail driven, hunting driven, where like that is that's who I am, that's what my passion is, that's what my interest is. On that same scale, the interest there is a 10, right?
Yeah.
So I'm not completely obsessed with the work yet, which is I think that we talked kind of off air a couple months ago about this, and you're like, well, that's a
Yeah.
good thing. And then, like, when you told me that, I really sat down and thought, I'm like, I think Aaron's right. Like, I think it is good because now I'm able to kind of have a shift in like my priorities, the way that I'm living my life, where like I can actually shut this off at 5, 6, 7 o'clock or whenever I get home. And like, there's a very defined kind of work life separation. So my family life, even though the work I'm not as passionate about, I'm still excited about it, but my family life has actually increased in quality because of that, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And it's so much more valuable to you when everybody says if you love what you do for a living, you'll never work a day in your life. And I'm sure there's truth to that.
Yeah.
And there's some kind of obsession with that. That might not always be the right mentality for everybody. Like there's always a couple ways to skin a cat, and I like being a nurse. I'm good at it. Like the people I work with, enjoy working with. I don't like to talk myself up but I do. It's a good thing to do. It's a good thing to do for humanity. But when I come home, I don't want that to be my life anymore.
Right.
You know, the good thing is you still kind of have your foot in the industry that you love, though.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like there's just enough interest and passion behind it where like I still am excited. I still want to go to work and do that. So it's relatable enough to hunting, even though it's not really. I mean, what we're doing with firearms is not necessarily from like a manufacturing standpoint, like where you're building campaigns targeted to a certain demographic. Like we're creating liquidity events for a plethora of different demographics. It could be an FFL, it could be an estate, it could be a private collector. So it's a little bit different, but we're still very engaged with like helping people, offering value, offering service. So it's just enough that it just works, right?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, it's good. It's
Yeah,
been
and
good.
I see you're getting not that you weren't before. You haven't missed any of your kids' games or anything like that, but you seem like pretty engaged in that stuff now.
Yeah. But well, before it was like I'm a very competitive person. I mean, we've known each other now for I don't know 5, 6 years
Yeah.
probably, and like I have a hard time sometimes like shutting my mind down or not wanting to be better than I was yesterday. And like it's almost a curse because you can't be great at everything every single day. Like
Yep.
you'll make leaps and strides in one area of your life and then like you'll fall back in others and you have to find the balance where it's kind of doing this. Like sometimes you're a great dad, sometimes you're a great husband, sometimes you're a great business owner, and you're doing kind of this there's a weird dichotomy there and that's just gotten easier for me essentially with the transition.
Dude, that's so good. I love that because I think overall, when you have balance like that, it makes you really good at everything you end up doing because you're not burnt out from it. It's the same way when you're in the gym, right? One day you could lift, you could lift, name the weight, whatever exercise you're doing. If you're squatting 400 pounds or whatever, and then the next week you're like, my, because like somewhere in between you did something, right?
That's right.
I worked 3 12-hour shifts in a row and then I decide to do legs the day after I get home, right? It's not
Probably
going to
not going to
work.
be your best leg
It's
day.
not
Yeah.
my best leg day, right? And then you get yourself down like, what the heck? Last week I did this and I don't know what's going on. It's because you put effort into something else, not necessarily a bad thing, but then you kind of got to give yourself grace. Okay, if I'm not lifting heavy today, what can I do to make this a good workout?
Yeah.
What can I do to, okay, maybe today isn't the day to focus on strength building. Maybe today's the day to focus on endurance because I've already put some miles on these legs or whatever it happens to be. But then the next time you come back, you're better all around or
Yeah.
whatever else you're doing, you're better all around. So I love seeing the transition and I'm glad it's going well for you.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that, buddy.
Yeah, that's such a cool thing, man. I mean, I'm sure there's so many people that know you or people that know me know you mostly, but I want to hear a little bit about your relatable background, and I want to hear it from your perspective. You don't have to tell what the crowd wants to hear, but I want to hear Chad's perspective on your background.
On my background, like from a hunting perspective, or just like kind of who I am, like how I was raised, like I
Yeah,
guess give me a little bit more context.
go from that. Like tie hunting into it a little bit, but maybe bring up into your childhood people that had influence on you, and then kind of tie in the hunting a little bit.
Okay, got it. Okay, so I guess growing up, my parents divorced at a young age. Had a younger brother. My mom remarried probably when I was like 4 or 5, and then ended up with I guess, a half sister between my mom and my stepdad. But we lived right next door to my grandparents. So my grandfather was the second generation owner of the farm that he grew up in that he bought off of his father, and it was at that time it was only 120 acres. But like growing up in you know, I guess in early on when my mom was single, like she was working, so there wasn't like everybody was working, right? Like my two uncles were working on the farm. They also had a trucking company, so they had a milk route that they ran. They actually started that business when they were still in high school, which is kind of crazy. Well, like growing up, even after my mom married, she remarried. She was still working, and we never really got. We didn't have a babysitter, right? We didn't get shipped off to daycare. Like we
Yeah,
just went over to the farm, and like we were over there all day, every day until they got home. They worked day turns, so 7 to 3. So that's just like if they were feeding cows, we were like sitting in a wheelbarrow in silage. Like that's just kind of what it was. If they were playing fields, we were in the fields picking up rocks. It was just
yeah,
like whatever the adults were doing, we were just there, right? And like we just made do with what we had. Like we would pack a lunch, sack lunch, and a big igloo kind of cooler of water, and we would just like go out in the field and play. And
yeah.
like one of my earliest memories was I remember going to an auction with my grandpa and my grandma on like a Friday night, and I was in kindergarten, so I was like 5 or 6, and they bought me and my brother. My brother is 2 years younger, so he was 4. They bought us machetes. A
Oh
five.
no.
So this was in the late summer, early fall, and like that next week, like we were just out in this cornfield, like cutting a maze with our machetes, cutting corn stalks down and building forts. And that's just, man, we just grew up like that. And, as we started to age, I got pretty involved in athletics or sports, played baseball and football, baseball, very short stint. But I remember being just a naturally good athlete and found some success like going through youth sports, and then like that drew attention to me and I liked the attention, and then I was always wanting to be competitive. So like that sports journey kind of took me into college. I got recruited to play D1 football out of high school and took that opportunity. But somewhere in between there, I guess I'll tie this into my grandfather. Like we grew up in a family of hunters, but it was, they were hobbyists.
Yeah.
It was, hey, shotgun season comes in the first Monday after Thanksgiving, and like everybody took the first day off of work, and everybody sighted their guns in 2 days before the season, and then they all had their stands that they hunted the same Monday. We never did deer drives, and that's just kind of what we did there. My grandfather, on the other hand, was not like that. Like he was very serious. He was practicing QDM and planning food plots and different things like in the early 90s, passing deer when like that was kind of unheard of.
Yeah.
So going back to the gun drive thing, I remember going to school and like that Tuesday or Wednesday, and like all the kids talking about the deer that they shot and the deer that they saw, and like putting on these drives and pushes. And I was like, man, like I'm over here freaking still hunting. I don't see a damn deer. Like this is terrible. Like all I wanted to do was do deer drives, and my grandfather would never let us because he was trying to let us or allow us build a skill set where we were hunting deer on the kind of their own terms, trying to build scouting and woodsmanship and understanding like there's a different way to go out and have those opportunities, have that experience and harvest deer. And I'm better off in the long run for it. But, kind of when you're 13, 14 years old, it's like you just want to kill. Like you don't see the grand vision of that journey. And then I guess when I was 15, I guess I would have been 16. This would have been like in the late 90s.
Uh-huh.
This was like on the first gun drive we've ever done, right? Like it was the last day of season. It was on a Sunday. And I mean, no, it was on a Saturday. We went in for lunch and I talked my two uncles into putting this little push on. So it was just three of us. And of course, they kind of gave me the spot. Like, you're going to walk down this abandoned railroad bed and we're going to push this way. And anyways, long story short, I lucked into a 177-inch deer as a 16-year-old. And that's kind of like what ignited the passion, I guess. Like killing a deer that big. And that was my first deer, not just like the first buck I ever killed. That was the first deer I killed at 16 years old with a 177-inch buck.
Yeah.
And I
Kind of
remember
spoils
that
it for you.
it did. Yeah, no, without a doubt. But the thing that I remember from that was everybody was like, you should just quit hunting right now because you're never going to kill another one like that. Like that just doesn't happen, right? Like
Yeah.
sell the gun, buy a rocking chair. And I was just like, I remember being infuriated by that. Just like I was pissed. I was pissed that people were telling me that. I'm like, no, like I'm going to do this again next year and the
Yeah.
year after that and the year after that. It didn't work out like that. But that Christmas, my parents bought me a used Jennings bow, and like I started archery hunting at the following season, so it would have been 17. And man, it was like 10 years of pure torture of like making every mistake that everyone else has ever made and just trying to learn it on my own because no one else was bow hunting. Everybody was just like the casual gun hunter. Even my grandfather, he was archery hunting, but he was using a crossbow. And business came first for him, so he was working more than he was hunting. But that's kind of how I got started. But my plan was never to like be in the industry or do that for a living. Like I wanted to be two things growing up. I wanted to be a football player or I wanted to be a cowboy. And like that's all that I really thought about um, growing up as a kid, really. So um I think as I sit here today, like as a 40-year-old, there were some fundamental things I think that my grandfather influenced me on. One was business, um, work ethic, and also like the woodsmanship at a young age of deer hunting, but also being open to technology. Like that was big for my grandfather. It was like he was always tinkering and trying to invent things and build things in a shop. And it was like in his mind, it was how do I leverage or make new tools to make me better at whatever I'm doing, or more efficient, so I can go have time, buy my time back, and do other things. And it wasn't necessarily hunting related, it was more work related, but I still kind of take that mentality in my everyday life. It doesn't matter if it's at work or if it's hunting or if I'm working on a vehicle or whatever the case is. Even with my kids, is being open to the change of whatever happening is happening, like on the technology side in the world, and how can I use that and leverage that to make my life better, if that makes
Y
sense.
Oh, yeah, totally. I think that's a good you're bringing this up. We always talk about technology being a tool to use, and this is something you and I have talked about a lot. Because I mean, you were manufacturing cell cams and stuff, and it came up like, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is just taking over hunting. Like the cell cam is what kills the deer, right?" And technology isn't the end all be all.
No.
You are the end factor to whatever you're using. But maybe you can answer this for me because we say, "Oh, use this as a tool," like whatever it is. Like I despise e-bikes. You and I have had a conversation about e-bikes. I can't use e-bikes here, so I hate them because
Yeah.
people use them illegally, right?
Yeah.
To take advantage of the system. If
Right.
they were legal, I wouldn't hate them because it
Right.
wouldn't be an advantage. It would be an advantage because I probably wouldn't own one, but that's my own. I That would be my own personal preference,
Right.
right? So how do you take technology and actually use it as a tool instead of a crutch or instead of a replacement for good things like scouting habits and things like that?
Yeah, I think like if you were to draw a pyramid, like I think everyone's probably familiar with like the food pyramid or like what that foundation is, and I think it's good to have a visual kind of a visual map of how that specific technology, whether it's hunting or work related or whatever it is, how that fits into like what your objective is. And then when you think about what the foundation is, and then like layer two and layer three, you know, the technology is probably somewhere in layer four, right? Because if you don't understand the underlying foundation, then you're not going to be able to maximize the technology that you're even using as a tool, right?
Right.
Like, yeah, you might know what the output of that is. Like, let's use cameras, for example. Like, I can go put a cell camera out, and if I don't understand the foundational aspect of hunting, of like bedding to food movements or the rut or post rut. If I don't understand all that, all I'm seeing is, hey man, I'm getting a picture sent to my phone. Oh, there's a big buck. There's like, and I'm gonna go hunt where the camera is. And like maybe you get lucky and maybe you have that camera set up in the right spot where you're getting consistent daytime movement, and maybe that is a spot you can hunt. But
Yeah.
if you don't have an understanding of the underlying foundation of how you're using the technology and what the inputs are and how to break down the outputs, I think like how to analyze those data points in that data set is that's the key.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it really is because it's you and I both use cell cams as a tool. So to understand how to not use it as a tool is kind of hard.
It
You know what I
is.
mean? Like
Yeah.
when you use it that way, because I can go out without a cell cam and still do the things that I love.
Mhm.
A cell cam is a very good aid. It helps me understand some information about the woods that I'm hunting, but really it's the work that I put into learning that woods, not just this. A cell cam is just a piece of the information. How do you think that we could, let's say you have a person that doesn't use it. How do you think you could influence that person to use it as a tool?
I would say the thing that you want to do, like if there's somebody out there listening that is, um, in kind of in that scenario, I would say go out with cameras in your pack or during your scouting mission and use the camera to disprove your theory. So go out and try to
Yeah.
prove a hypothesis of whatever that is. Like, let's say I want to go out and I want to find like a transition area where I think deer are kind of feeding before they get to like their destination food source at night or in the evening. Like, use your scouting to kind of identify that and then hang a camera to prove that theory right or wrong. And I think that's the easiest place for someone new to start. Or if it could be as simple as, hey, I think this is a deer trail or a deer run. I'm going to
Yeah.
put a camera here and let me see if deer are actually using this trail. Like, so
Yeah.
there are like some very small things I think that new hunters could use as kind of like building blocks to kind of gain confidence in their hypothesis or their scouting techniques to kind of prove them right or wrong. And listen, sometimes being wrong is as good as being right, because you can cross that off your list and change the way that your mind is processing or thinking about certain situations. I know that like everybody wants to be right 100% of the time, right? Because
Mhm.
it feels good to be right. But
Uh-huh.
sometimes part of winning is being wrong and knowing to move on from that scenario or that spot or that area. So I think kind of starting with those small things for new folks of just like, let me go in, let me figure out what kind of deer movement I'm getting, or if a deer even exists on this piece. Like start at the very basics. I wouldn't go in and for someone new and say, okay, well, I need to hunt beds. I
Yeah.
need to go in and find the biggest, baddest, buck in the area. I need to find where his bed is and I need to kill him 50 yards from his bed. Like, dude, it's going to be a long, miserable journey for you if you're a new hunter and like that's what you're trying to do.
Oh,
Like, could you
yeah.
get lucky? Yes, but like it's not going to be fun and it's not going to be enjoyable.
No, not at all. I It's funny because now, like today, instead of instead of going back to raw bones, right? When we were kids, your grandfather taught you about tracks and trails, how to find a deer, how to learn patience. We don't have any of that. We don't have
No,
no patience
no,
anymore, right?
no.
With anything, like if you want to buy a TV now, you don't save up for it anymore. You put it on a credit card and then you maybe pay it off. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
There's no working hard for something. And I think there's some kind of something happening now where everybody's kind of reverting back. I think they want that raw experience. Like not necessarily, oh, I want to be surprised by whatever buck is in the field, but they want to learn the land, the animal first and really have this really good relationship with it. Because the reason I love running cameras, the reason you love running cameras is it adds a little element to the piece of the puzzle, but I really like to see pictures of deer.
oh yeah,
It's something else to get you excited about it. So I think they're a good, healthy thing when you're using them that way, any type of technology. And the like you see this big put like a lot of people are wanting to hunt with a trad bow now, and a lot of people they're just getting back to as basic as it possibly can get. Not necessarily, they'll say it's the challenge or because it's hard, but it's just cool to see what you can bring out of yourself, what you can learn without AI or without, you know, you realize that stuff. ChatGPT, take it for example, right? You tell that thing to do something, how many times you gotta tell that thing to do that thing you want it to do before it gets it kinda right? It takes a while because it's not
yeah,
that smart. Like, it's smart, it can especially with, like, trending media or whatever, it can do things real quick. But if you ask it something that that's not really that popular, hunting stuff, for example, it takes a long time for that thing to figure out what you're asking it to do.
right.
But you already know how to do it, or you can figure out how to do it faster. So it's kind of, we're seeing some kind of shift back to that, which I think is which is healthy in some aspect, but it makes a little bit of a war when it comes to hunting and fishing.
Yeah, I think what that is, and maybe I shouldn't speak for everybody, but this is what I get from it.
Yeah.
I hunt because I have like this, for me, it's like a primal connection. And I think
Uh-huh.
about like the way we've evolved over 6 million years or whatever, however million years Homo sapiens have been walking around the earth. Um, we evolved very slowly over time as hunters or gatherers. And then, so when you look at like the environmental stimulus or inputs that we have now, like we've evolved very, very rapidly over, I don't know, let's say 500 years, maybe 1,000 years since like the age of farming, right?
Right.
Like for me, like I care about primal experiences being tied to the earth in some
Uh-huh.
way. And like there's an adventure aspect for me. Like that's why I love big woods. That's why I love the Western stuff, is like I can go roam and feel like I'm in a wild place.
Mhm.
And that is different for everybody. But I think that I think you're right. I think there is starting to be a shift going back to what I would consider something that is a little more primal, that's a little more intimate. Maybe primal's not the right word. Maybe it's intimate because of the experience that they're having. But again, like, and that's probably, I don't want to sound like a hypocrite because we're talking about technology and then I'm talking about like having a primal experience. But um, I I think that there's a way to make those two things work together for everybody. And like everybody's going to be a little bit different, right? Like, and if you're a trad guy that only wants to hunt trad and like they don't want to use cameras, like, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm stoked for you. I've never been a guy that's like, you have to do it this way and this is the only way. Like that, like it's not my tag, it's not my money, it's not my time, it's not my experience, right? Like go do the things that you get the most out of, that make that experience at the highest level for you, and you get the most satisfaction. And like that's all that we're doing. And share those experiences with guys that you want to have share camp with, man.
Yeah.
Like because there is a big part. And when you think about when you harvest a deer, like what's one of the most instinctual things that you do afterwards after you process that deer? Like you want to give or share that bounty with other people. Like you make jerky sticks or deer sticks and like you want to share that stuff. Like where does that come from, right? Like to
Hmm.
me that's not like a modern thing. That's
Nope.
because like back in the day when someone killed something and they drug it into camp, like everybody was starving and like you were put on a pedestal, like that you provided for everybody. And
Yeah.
like I think like that stuff is all still present, but it's things that like we just don't think about as modern hunters.
No, not at all. And I think it's cool what you said there because it's so true. Like as soon as I've called you from a tree stand, you know what I mean? Like, dude, there he's laying on the ground, and all excited. And it's you can do a solo hunt. Like archery is a very solo thing. Maybe not as much in Western style hunting. A lot of times you're with a partner, like one's calling, and you're kind of making some kind of strategy as you're going, and that's so cool. Deer hunting specifically, especially when you're, hunting out of a tree saddle, whatever, unless you got a cameraman over your back, it's very a solo, selfish kind of thing. But we were not created to be selfish, right? Like it's an instinct to share it with people that you love or people that are your friends. And then it goes beyond, like you said, goes beyond the tree stand. It's like, hey, what can I reach in my freezer and pull out to have for dinner when my friends come over? What can I mean, we got to share how many meals out in Harrisburg together that
Oh
were
yeah.
things that we killed or whatever it is. And it's cool. It's cool to have that element. But when you go to something like that, it's like you realize it's not just in your circle, right? You have this whole world of people that want to talk to you about the thing that they killed, and it's easy to talk to and connect to that person that you've never met before.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say like it's bigger than like everything that we're talking about is bigger than like who we are and what we're doing like today.
Uh-huh.
Like and that's where like the just going back of like that evolution and like it is so fascinating to me. Um that we live in 2025, yet we're still doing some of the same habitual things that were done, 2,000 years ago. Like it's wild.
Yeah. I mean, you think about Native Americans, and I'm not Native American, but I'm sure every country hunted at some point to in groups like that. Like you think about Native Americans chasing buffalo across the plains over a cliff, and it was a whole village that took care of those things. Like I said, I think there's some kind of shift back to that because not only are people kind of shifting away from, like I said, deer hunting by nature, it's kind of a solo sport. I mean, you can't really hunt deer out of a blind with 15 people like you can for ducks or something like that. But there's some kind of camaraderie element to it, whether it's you're calling the person to come help you pack out or get advice on blood trailing deer, which ends up me being talking to you about what's going to happen. But, you know I think the other cool thing that you mentioned when you were talking about your grandfather is, you were talking about the patience that he was trying to instill from you. And then instead of instead of just hunting with the gun, you're like, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to bow hunt. And then you realize a lot more mistakes come with your archery skills, right? Where do you think when you make a mistake in hunting, where do you think that your mistakes stem from? Is it buck fever? Is it that you weren't prepared? And what do you do to kind of remedy those things?
I think that's a good question. Um, where the mistakes come from, I would say the thing that I struggle with the most is trusting intuition, trusting gut,
Uh-huh.
trusting my instincts.
Uh-huh.
Um, I think that stems from media consumption. To be honest, like been so plugged in, and over the last, I'm going to say 15 years,
Uh-huh.
and we have. I was very fortunate to have conversations with guys like you and Clint and guys like John Eberhard, and be able to hunt with Dan Infald, and like all these guys that we've seen kind of in the media spotlight, the hunting public guys. And the thing is, they all have a different approach. Like generally, they're all kind of the same foundational elements are kind of similar, but they all have
Uh-huh.
like different ways to skin the cat. And sometimes I'll find myself in a scenario where I want to do something a certain way and I think it's right, and then I'm like, man, but this guy would do it a little bit different, or he
Uh-huh.
wouldn't do it that way. He would do it this way. Oh, and John wouldn't do it this way. He'd do it this way, and I start second guessing what my gut is telling me to do,
Uh-huh.
and more often than not, like that leads to failure. At least it has for me. And
Uh-huh.
the reality of it is, like, you go out, just for easy math, like you go out and do 100 whitetail hunts, like you're gonna fail 98% of the time. 98 out of 100, like you're gonna fail. That's just like fail in a sense of like you're not going to wrap your tag around an animal in during that experience. It doesn't necessarily mean the entire hunt is a failure. But I
Right.
think that's personally, like that's the thing that I struggle with the most. One thing that, like, just diving pretty deep into the Western stuff the last 5 or 6 years, I don't really consume that much Western content. So I think it's been refreshing for me to go out there and go screw things up. And like,
Uh-huh.
dude, it's like I screw a lot up. I mean, it's bad. Like we'll go have 6 or 7 elk encounters in 10 to 14 days, and like none of them work out. And I'm like, okay. So a couple years ago, I started taking notes after, we would do something like, let's say we located a bull and he had a small harem with him, and we waited for that bull to go to bed, like in this bowl. And then we would say, okay, we're going to get in, we're going to wait for the thermals to stabilize. We're going to drop in above them. The thermals would be blowing up, and we're going to go in and do this cow call thing. Right. And it wouldn't work. Like the wind would switch or something bad would happen, and we'd just blow everything out. Before, we were like, the first couple of years, we were like, oh man, that sucks. Let's go find another one. And
Uh-huh.
like we kind of did that for a while. And then a couple of years ago, we're like, wait a minute. Like, let's debrief this situation. Like, let's like from the start, like how we found those elk to how it got screwed up. Like, what went right? What went wrong? What would we do different, dude? And I started to take notes on my phone after every encounter. And like then we started to see a trend. Like, okay, we were overly aggressive because like we were in an area that has plenty of animals, and it's like, let's just go screw it up as fast as we can. Like fail fast, succeed fast, and then we'll just go find another one. And we worked our probably overworked ourselves because of that. So now,
Uh-huh.
like to your point, we're a little more patient. It's like we don't need to kill them in the next 2 hours. Like we could sit on them and wait for them to transition into where they were feeding the night before, and then like make a game plan. Like we don't, maybe that doesn't work out. Like maybe the wind or something's wrong, and maybe we have to sit on them and hunt them tomorrow morning back in that same bedding area in transition. So I think that trend of being overly aggressive, like, and it's probably, now that I think about it, as I'm kind of talking through this, that probably is consistent with my whitetail hunting too. But
I wasn't gonna say it.
yeah, but I think like debriefing every hunt, and not just like mentally. I mean, I think taking notes and writing those things down so you can identify those trends has helped me a lot over the last I'd say 4 to 4, 5, 6 years.
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, what you said about, okay, you're in a bunch of animals, you're gonna be overly aggressive. That can work. I killed that bull on the first day because we got really aggressive on him. That was a really good time to be aggressive. Well, I mean, I think it was. I don't know. I I only elk hunted once. But I think the thing that you are learning about animals is, especially with an elk, if you go in there and you're overly aggressive, it just means you have to go another mile tomorrow,
That's it.
right? And after that mile, you have to go another mile because they get smart. They're not going closer to camp, right? They're not an animal that adapts like a whitetail. If you scare whitetail out of a big block of timber, there's a good chance it's going laying next to the in the flower bed next to the suburban area that you're hunting near. You know what I mean? Elk are not like that. So when you're taking the time to carefully learn the animal, because all animals have a different personality, maybe there's an elk that you should be ultra aggressive on, but you should learn what the aggression is gonna where that's gonna come from. Is it coming from another bull taking his does away? Is it coming because something's just firing him up? Is something going into his area where he likes to feed? Whatever that is, you won't know that by you being aggressive. You have to observe his aggression first, and then you can figure out how aggressive you need to be.
Yep.
Same thing with
Take his
whitetails.
temperature.
Yeah, same thing with whitetails. Like, you might have a buck that is gonna come running in and is probably, hit some rattling antlers together. Well, maybe that buck will come charging in, maybe it won't. Probably not, unless it's the right scenario, right? Maybe you're only 80 yards from that deer and you can't see him, and he can't see where you're at. That's a really good scenario to be aggressive, but you won't know that kind of thing until you know that animal. Maybe he's a deer that likes to get his picture taken a lot. Maybe you accidentally caught him on camera and you can tell he's like, "Oh, what's that?" All that kind of stuff. So that's really important when it comes to especially Western hunting, because you're on limited time. You're not hunting out your back door for you're not hunting the back 40 for whitetails. The stakes are higher, right? You traveled far, you paid a lot for a tag, you left family at home, and hopefully, I know you, and you leave home in a good place before you go on those hunts. But those are things that are still going through your mind.
Absolutely.
How's handling travel for you with your family when it comes to things like that?
It's getting harder. I'll say that. I would say I travel more than the average guy. I mean, I usually go at least on one trip a year. Actually, I
Uh-huh.
would say I travel probably a lot. Like,
Yeah.
con like, measuring against other people. Like, I'm usually in Idaho, I'm usually out west for at least 2 weeks in September, and then there's
Uh-huh.
usually a week of traveling for deer hunting. So I'm on anywhere from 2 weeks to 5 weeks, like, kinda in the fall, and, it was a little easier when the kids were smaller, when they weren't into things and, like,
Right.
they were 3 to 5 years old, they weren't in school, and they were just kinda hanging out with mom at the house. Now that, the kids are older and, like, they're in school and they have extracurricular activities after school and, like, they have friends and their friends and, like, they have all these different experiences, right? Because 'Cause they're maturing. It's a lot harder for me. Um, I don't take that, like, lightly at all because they miss me as much as I miss them.
Yeah.
And, like, when you're on some of those Western hunts, if you're in the backcountry, like, you can't talk, like, you just don't have you don't have cell service.
Right.
And, like, I have like, one of those stat communication things,
Yeah.
not an inReach, but it's a Bluetooth thing I can use on my phone. So I can send text here and there. But I think the when I come back, like, I'm a better person, I'm a better man, I'm a better father, I'm a better husband, and
Uh-huh.
they understand that too. And I think, like, there's a level of acceptance of, like, okay, dad's gonna be gone, but when I come back, like, I'm so recharged, refocused, and, like, feel like I'm living with better purpose when I come on the backside of those trips. Dude, it's hard. Like, you're married. I mean, you know what it's like. Like, even like w- coming home from Colorado, like, there's always these things that life is going to throw at you that you have to deal with when you come home. And
Yeah.
um, the only thing I can say is, like, communicating those things to your better half, I guess, to have a level of acceptance there is, like, I would say it's paramount.
Yeah. I
'Cause
think
she's sacrificing as much as you are or more, like, she's
Oh,
the
for
one doing all the
sure.
work.
For sure. I think people always say stuff like, "Oh, I have to have all the things in line before I leave." And like my wife, and I'm sure your wife is like this too. My wife doesn't care if I vacuumed the living room every day for the last 3 months and got all the house chores done and checked off 90% of the honey-do list. She doesn't really care because all that stuff is eventually going to get done. And all the stuff that I took away from her, like the cleaning or whatever it happens to be, she can do that stuff. She already has it built into her routine, or it's built into my routine and she's just picking parts of it up or whatever it is, that stuff doesn't matter to her as much as the quality stuff, like going to your kid's game and being invested in it, or taking some time with her and not talking about which way the thermals are going to be at the next morning. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Because we are, when it, especially when it gets to hunting season, we have a one track mind. I'm like, tomorrow the weather's going to be perfect to sit in this stand at this location. I'm going to ask this person to go, or have a backup for that. And I'm planning it all. And she's like, I don't really care. I mean,
yeah,
she does because she cares, and she cares that I love that. And it's important to her because, like you said, I'm a better father. I'm a better husband. I do my job better, but I don't always do it that well during the hunting season. Because I say all that, and I think that overall it makes me a better person. What I need to work on is like, okay, when I get home from a hunt, I don't need to talk to her about it. I already talked to her about it with 18,000 people, unless she asks me and wants to know. But when I get home, it's time to just kick back to hey, this is our life mode. Okay. She loves that I hunt because it's important to me. It's important to things that I do because with this podcast, I want to make a difference for people. It's not just because I want to hear myself talk every week. Like, I hope that what you and I are talking about right now helps somebody else and either helps make them a better life, or whatever it is, impacts their life somehow. Right.
yeah,
But when I get home, I'm not always a better person immediately. It's kind of not in such a big scale, but when you hang a trail camera, people say you're on a 3-year plan. Like, I'm going to look at
hmm
this area for 3 years, I'll figure it out. Right. Sometimes it's a 3-day plan. 3 days later, I'm better. Right. But when I get home, if I missed a deer, or I didn't see or the hunt didn't go well, or until I am able to process all that, like, what did I do wrong? We're talking about things that you did, making mistakes and stuff or whatever, or how do you remedy them? I have to tell myself, like, hey, it's a good idea to write things down, not just because you want to know what to do better next time, but so you have the immediate memory of, I did this. This is how I process it. This is what I can do better. Now move on. Because you're thinking about all those pieces, but you never put them together. You know what I mean? So then you want to tell your wife, like, oh, that makes sense. I was sitting up the hill and the thermals were going down the hill, or, I, you know, I don't do this, but I know people that do. I was reading a book and then I turned around the wrong direction. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So stuff like that. If I don't process all that on my own on the way home, and usually I don't because I'm home in 5 to 30 minutes from wherever I'm hunting, you should take a minute to write it down, because that part could be important to what makes you better in the long run. Because you can say, oh, I unwound, I'm in the tree. Yes, you were, but I'm usually not better for about 3 days, or
yeah.
maybe not 3 days. That might be an extent. It could be hours or whatever, but it takes away the time when I get home that's quality for my daughter and my wife, or friends that I'm going to hang out with later, or whatever it happens to be.
I think you're 100% right. There was in college, Coach Haycock had this acronym of WIN, WIN, and you
Hmm.
probably heard me talk about this because this was like a thing at Exodus, but it stood for what's important now. And the message there is like, just be present with 100% focus, 100% effort on whatever you're doing, wherever you're at in the moment. Like sometimes that's hunting, sometimes that's being a husband, sometimes that's being a father. Like, and if you're present in the moment, like overall, the trajectory of your life, I think ultimately will go up. But I think to your point about writing things down, I think it gives you two things. It gives you closure and the opportunity to disengage from whatever that failure was, right? But it also allows you to go back and reconnect with the failure without like physically being emotionally tied to it, because you're thinking and trying to
Yeah.
process that information, and then it brings up that emotional experience, and then it's like, oh shit, maybe I just got into a bad place because of that, and maybe I'm like totally disengaged from wherever I am in that moment. So it's I don't know, it works for me, and that's all I can say.
No, it totally makes sense. Well, you know me, I remember a lot of things. So it's I remember the first year I went with you and you gave me a price list and I looked at it and then I threw it away. You're like, "Oh, you're gonna need that." And I'm like, "Nah, it's all right." You're like, "I can't believe." The thing is I remember things like that, right? Like, I don't write anything down when I'm at work. People are giving me a report. They're like, "You don't write anything down?" I'm like, "No, I'll remember it all." I can remember things like that because it's separated. It's not me. You know what I mean? It's somebody else's
Mhm.
lab numbers or their vital signs or whatever it is, or their history, their medical history, whatever it is that they're telling me about. I can remember all that for a day. I can brain dump it and forget it. But when it comes to when you made a mistake and you haven't identified what it is, your mind is racing and going in circles to try to figure out the things that happen throughout the day. If you take it down and write it down specifically, this is what it was, and you've made a decision that that's what it was, or maybe you write down three and you determine, pick the best of the three, then that makes a list in your mind. You can kind of move
Mhm.
on from it easier then.
Yeah.
What do you think about we're talking about all this stuff. It's getting harder. You said it's getting harder, and I think for you it'll get easier again because I think one day your son's going to want to go west with you.
So
And
close.
yeah, I know it'll make it easier again, right? Because life is a cycle. Those things come back around, and you're still fit as a fiddle, so you'll be able to do those kind of things with him. But what do you think? Do you think things are changing for you in some aspects? Like I feel like you're chasing an experience now more than you used to chase a kill.
I would say yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would agree.
Well, and I'll give you an example. When you started elk hunting, it was like, okay, I'm gonna do this like whitetail. I'm looking for big bull, whatever. And then like 2, 3 years into it, you're like, I will shoot any bull that shows his freaking face, man. And your first bull wasn't the one you were after, but
No.
you were elated
Dude, I'm so
to
pumped.
finally kill a bull because you worked
Yeah.
so hard for that experience.
Yeah. I think part of that too, again, like going back to the media thing, and actually like going back through my whole hunting journey, like I was obsessed with big deer at an age where I should not have been I should not have that mental state.
Because you
Like,
shot a big one first.
well, that's just it. It's like you go kill 170 whatever 177-inch whitetail, and then it's like, okay, well, I'm gonna go find another one. And then like the problem, not the problem, the blessing and the curse was I was hunting the most primo ground that anybody could go pick a rut funnel in November. You sit in a stand for 3 days, and like you're gonna see 150-inch deer.
Right.
Like, and that was the reality. But like going through my 20s, and like there was some rodeo stuff, and then like there was a little bit of hiatus where I wasn't as serious, and then I eventually came back to it. But going through my 20s, it's like I probably built a false sense of confidence in who I was and my skill set as a hunter.
Hmm.
And then when I went on that first trip elk hunting, it was a terrible trip. It's from like an encounter standpoint. We hunted Colorado in an over the counter unit and just got my butt kicked, right? But
Uh-huh.
like I came that's when the switch flipped for me. I'm like, I just had the most incredible experience. I saw one elk in like however many days, like 9-day trip or something. I felt like a new man. Well, I came back that season and hunted the home farm, and I hunted 2 days. I came back, hunted November 10th, had an encounter with a deer, went in the next day and killed that deer.
Uh-huh.
But like I remember sitting in the stand in like the night before, so this would have been November 10th, and like I could hear the dog bark from the barn, because I'm like a quarter mile. I don't even know if it was a quarter mile away from the barn.
Uh-huh.
Like it got dark and I could see the lights come on up at the barn, and then I could hear trucks start. I'm like, this is on the tail end of that elk trip. I'm like, this just is not. This just isn't it.
Uh-huh.
And the next day I shot a 160-inch mid 160s typical,
Uh-huh.
and I was just like, there was something missing. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
and then I found a short film. I'm trying to think what the name of it is. Pursuing the Allegheny, I think, is a short
Oh, that's
film
a great, yeah. They don't make
by
a whole
Wild
lot
at
of
Heart.
stuff. It's so good. Yeah.
No, and I watched that, and I'm like, this is the way I need to be hunting whitetails.
Uh-huh.
Because those guys were Western guys, and they came and they're like, why can't we hunt whitetails the way we Western hunt?
Yeah.
And like that's when it switched for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And now it is more about the experience.
That's such a
But I
good
still love
film.
big animals.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think we all do to some extent. I think I hate buying grocery store I hate buying meat from the grocery store.
Mm.
So at some point, I stopped caring about a big animal, especially when I've got a gun in my hand. I know I've got 2 weeks. I'm not saying I'm gonna shoot the smallest buck that comes by, but I'm probably not gonna look that long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's not important to everybody because, I have a farm I can hunt and I can well, and I do too. I can shoot a whole bunch of does there, and then I can just enjoy chasing a buck. Do it how you wanna do it, you know,
Yeah.
whatever it is. But I do get more from the experience over the kill, and I know what flick you're talking about, man. That was such a good film, and they didn't make that many. They did one with did you see the bear hunting one?
I think I did. Yeah.
Yeah, very similar, but the style of hunt is so cool because they turned it into an adventure, and they're not, like, killing they're killing really good PA whitetails, but they're not killing, like, these
No.
booner bucks. But
No.
you can tell from the experience in that film that it's just like there is something so special to that.
There is.
I think you guys had them on the podcast shortly after that, and it was Exodus Trail Cam Radio.
Early on in the podcast, yeah, we
Yeah,
had those
yeah,
guys on.
I
Yeah.
listened to it, and it's so cool. It's so cool to hear their perspective on it because they're some pretty cool guys. They don't put out a lot of content anymore, but they're pretty cool dudes. When you're looking for these resilience, these aren't easy things to do. Where do you find it into you to get to build your resilience?
I think that came from my grandfather and my stepdad at a young age of like just instilled work ethic and like knowing things don't come easy. And like I think if taking it upon yourself, like to get better at anything you want to do, like you're solely 100% responsible for your life.
Uh-huh.
um and like I think having that mindset has, like, through my 20s, like I had some pretty bad failures, and like that regret, it kind of held with me for a while. But then when I started the rodeo, I met some guys who influenced me quite a bit, like on the mental side of
Mhm.
like what it meant to not be able to point the finger at somebody else. Because like when you're on a team, you're playing team sports. Like you can watch a film and say, okay, this guy missed his block, or he didn't have the right gap fit on defense, which led the guard to get up into the second level, and then like I'm fighting the guard and the fullback before I can make a tackle, yada yada yada. Well, like when you're in a solo sport, like it's just you, man.
Uh-huh.
Like it's just you, and like you either win or you lose. And I think that there's a lot of transparency and I don't want to say necessarily. It was a little bit soul searching for me, but then I've always been infatuated with like the Western lifestyle and like the figures out there, the manly figures. They're like people are a little harder. Like life is a little more difficult.
Yeah.
Like the daily life is a little more difficult. There's less convenience. There's less comfort. I don't know. I just naturally gravitate towards that stuff. And obviously, like in the age that we live in, it's like these special operation forces and like spec op guys are like they are like shining in the spotlight of media, and like a lot of what they talk about is going and doing hard things. And
Mhm.
then like you and I have talked about Dr. Huberman a little bit, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna butcher this, and maybe you should speak on it. But like, there's a part of your brain that has is elastic in the fact that like when you go do hard things, like it grows, like your resiliency grows. Like
Yep.
it's like so doing hard things is good. It's good for you.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, you get um when you get immediate gratification from some kind of dopamine thing, it's the same thing as like people do cocaine, it hits their dopamine center right away, right? The same thing come the same thing comes from doing hard things. You're hitting that center of your brain. The problem is you're experiencing suffering and hardship while you're doing it too. So it's not the same immediate gratification, excitement, but it is so much better long term. And you're right. Like that is, what he talks about is that elasticity part of your brain ends up growing when you do these hard things, but it doesn't happen overnight. All right.
Hmm.
When he's talking about cold, like if you get in a cold shower one time, it doesn't make you a different human the next day. like they're using cold therapy to treat people with alcoholism. It doesn't like, okay, cold plunge one time, I'm not an alcoholic anymore. No, it takes a lot of work, right? But because you end up growing that part of your brain, it's the same concept as a muscle, right? You put the right nutrition, you eat the right amount of protein, and you work that muscle however you're working it. You can overwork a muscle too. So you have to let it rest a little bit, but working it the way you're supposed to be ends up making it grow. It's the same concept with your brain, and it makes you feel better, right? You work out, you end up getting more energy, but it doesn't happen the next day. In fact, it takes a couple of weeks. You know that. If you're doing a new workout routine, you're tired for like a month. And then all of a sudden it's like, hey man, today I'm like, let's go. You're like, oh, I'm a little high on life right now. But it's so important to do these hard things. And that's what I'm saying is I think there is some kind of a shift back to um, doing those hard things for the experience, but really it's just rely, like you said, just to rely on yourself and strip everything down to its
Mhm.
simplest form is something that we all want to do it to some extent. But I'm finding myself chasing like I want to do everything. I don't want to just go hunt deer because I said this to somebody the other week, and you're gonna like this too. I might tell people that I'm a bow hunter, but I really only bow hunt whitetails. Does that make me a bow hunter? I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like if you're going to say I'm a bow hunter, that means you hunt as many things as possible with a bow. Because otherwise, you're just a deer hunter. I
Yeah,
mean, you
that
hunt deer with a bow, but not
that's an
really.
interesting.
You know what I mean? So now I'm like, I don't really care what I kill it with, but I want the experience.
Yeah.
Out here bow fishing stingrays and shooting carp and uh, predator hunting with thermals at night, and I'm thankful for my friend that takes me around and like, oh, you got to try this. But it's the experience is really what I want because it's fun. And like I said, in the end, I can reach in my freezer, be like, what are we having for dinner tonight? And that's cool. That's really, really cool. And it ends up being you find something that you like to make with whatever it is. We cooked up some stingrays last week, and everybody's like, "You eat stingray?" Like, yeah, it's actually really freaking good. So it's just cool. It's just cool to see all this stuff kind of evolve, and my friends like you, um, start to shift towards that experience because you do want more balance in your life, and seeing your son grow and your daughter and you being so involved with them. In my mind, you're going to be a better hunter because of it.
I would like to, yeah, I would like to think so. They're so close to the age of like being involved, and like I can already find myself like, dude, I don't care what I have going on. Like now, it's about them,
Uh huh.
it's but it's not really. Like people say that, like, okay, my son's 9. Like we were on the verge of doing some turkey stuff this year. Like, of course, like wanted to sleep in every possible Saturday, so it's like, okay, maybe next year.
Uh huh.
But I'm thinking about like how do I want to get them involved? How do I want them to see that first kill? But like really, like when I'm really thinking about that that situation and that experience, like it's still selfish for me. It's because I want to have that experience with my son. Like I want to see him shoot a turkey, shoot a gobbler in the face. Like for me, not
Yeah.
necessarily for him. I mean, I want it to happen for him, and I want him to enjoy it. And I want like all those things are running through my mind, but I'm pushing for that because I want to experience that bond and that experience with him in the moment.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. It's like super interesting, and like my son is not so much obsessed with whitetails. Like honestly, he can care less about deer. But like turkeys and moose and elk and like these big game things, like he's infatuated with bears and moose are like his two things. But my daughter wants to go out and glass every single night. Like
Uh
we haven't done very much this summer, but usually in the evenings we'll just get and we'll drive like 5 mile loop and hop in a truck, and like she wants to do that every single night.
That's
But
cool.
she wants nothing to do with like being in the woods and like taking the life of an animal. I mean, she just doesn't.
Yeah.
So it's like there's a I don't know, there's bits and pieces to that, and like just kind of navigating that as as those opportunities come. But
It's a kind of a two-prong approach, right? Because you know that investing the time in your kids, my daughter doesn't really show any interest in hunting, but she likes that I do it. And she'll come outside and, in the springtime when I start shooting a bow, she'll be like, "Oh, I want to shoot my bow with you." And she gets really into it. She'll go outside by herself and shoot her bow for however long. And I don't when she does those things, I encourage it and I am excited about it. And when she doesn't want to, I just got to let it go. I can't
hmm
I can't make her do it. And I think just encouraging those little things, like if your kid likes to shoot a gun, and I'm not talking about your son in general. I'm just talking about people in general. If your kid likes to shoot a gun, maybe get him a 22 and go shoot groundhogs. Because guess what? It's a target. It's something fun. It's not any stress. You can shoot distance. You can shoot close. It's exciting for a kid who's I mean, you can start small like that. And the nice thing is that's something like a groundhog you could shoot all year long. Well, not all year long, but in the summer months when hunting is not as popular. Um, but it's a two-prong approach because you're getting out something out of it, but you know that the time that you invest is time that he will appreciate or she will appreciate later on, and then they'll pass it on to their kids. And it's hunting isn't just you could say, "Oh, well, it's a good way to keep kids out of trouble." It is that, but it's a lot more because it teaches you how to do those hard things because none of it's easy. Doesn't matter how small the animal is. Like you have to do something like even if you're hunting squirrels, like you have to go and learn where that animal lives, what it prefers to eat, when it likes to come out, how far you should be when you're shooting it, like how quiet you need to be. Should you sit still? Should you stalk? Whatever it happens to be, it's hard. And those things are healthy because they translate into all kinds of hard things. Like routine exercise is not easy, but the more hard things you do, the easier routine exercise is. And I think this is what a lot of people are trying to get across. Hard things is good, but they're just important for life in general, for mental resilience. They're saying psychologists are saying stoicism is um, better than sharing all your feelings and anxiety and stuff. Well, stoicism is kind of what helps to deter some of these. I mean, if you look on somebody's medical chart, every single patient has anxiety, general depression, like all this stuff. Why? Because they can't like somebody told them they had to share all their I'm not saying it's healthy to share feelings with certain people, right? Your close friends, your spouse, maybe a therapist, whatever. But there is something to say, okay, I am anxious and I'm going to crush it now.
yeah,
Instead
it's
of,
okay. Like
you know,
I think I think
instead of
it,
just allowing it, I'm going to freaking crush it now.
yeah, like the stress anxiety thing, like it's normal. Like
Uh-huh.
everybody has some level of stress. Like figure out how to deal with it. Find your outlet. For some people, it's exercise. Exercise is a great one.
Mhm,
That's what mine is.
mhm.
Maybe it's something else, but like it's a normal everyday thing. Learn how to deal with learn how to deal with it. Yeah.
Um, do you think so your grandfather was one person that made a big difference in your life. Do you, when it comes to hunting especially, have you taken, um, well, this is kind of a dumb question because I know the answer to this, but
Ask it anyway.
have people in your hunting life, have they really influenced you and made a difference in your hunting or your personality?
I'm not sure. Maybe not my personality. I would say I'm sure that there probably is in some capacity, but like as far as hunting, yes, yeah, there have been. Dan Infall has made a big difference, even like prior to the Exodus days of
Uh-huh.
like when I found the hunting beast and like my handle was like fastback going for 90 or I don't know, it's probably some, some goofy handle.
Uh-huh.
I just remember being infatuated by this dude. Like, how is this guy doing what he's doing?
Uh-huh.
And like, it started to make sense. And then I would try and it wouldn't work. But I've had the opportunity to hunt and shared camp with Dan a handful of times now, and the biggest takeaway is like his open mindedness. Like you don't have to do it like he does it,
Yeah.
right? But being with him and scouting with him, the level of detail and how slow, how much patience he has. Like everybody thinks like over overly aggressive. Like I'm gonna go find this bed. I'm gonna hang 50 yards from the bed and kill it. Yeah, he does that, but that's like the very last step in a 300 step process that he's
Uh-huh.
taking time and paying attention to all the finite details to get to that last step. If that kind of makes sense.
Totally.
So it's like you have to know when to be patient. You have to know when to go slow. You have to know when, um, you know when to go slow to find those details, and then like, okay, this is the last step. Let me go kill the buck. That's kind of what his approach is. But sharing camp with him a handful of times and scouting with him, like just the little things that he pays attention to, like not just tracks, but like I remember we were down in this bottom. We were hunting a piece of public,
Uh-huh.
and I'll share this real quick. And there was kind of a big drainage that kind of came down, and there was like a couple thermal hubs, like maybe a half a mile back. But there was a scrape, like where you would think there would be a scrape just outside this food source. And I'm looking at the licking branch. Dan's checking out the scrape on the ground, and he cuts a track. He's like, "Oh, this looks like a good deer." Like, so he starts poking around, and all of a sudden, he's like 75 yards away from me. And he's like, "Oh, I got a rub." And he went from a track, and track, creek crossing, and then he started gaining elevation, and it was like rub, rub, and he caught a rub line, and he tracked that deer all the way back to its bed.
Huh.
But that was a few hour process. And there were spots where like there was maybe 100 yards where there was no sign, but he's finding a little twig that's broken.
Right.
Like all these fine, like these little things where I'm looking at the obvious stuff. I'm looking at the ground. Oh, I don't see any tracks. Oh, I don't see any rubs. Like I can find the big sign, but he's paying attention to all like the blades of grass or the leaves shifted, like all this finite stuff that like aren't enamoring. Like it's
Mhm.
not big punch in the face Mike Tyson sign. It's all the little
Right.
stuff. Um, and that made a pretty big influence on me, a handful of years ago of like, dude, I need to slow down. I just
Mhm.
need to be patient through the process. And when the time's right, trust your gut when the time's right, and then, make the move.
Yeah, it's so important. The details are important. And just you talking about that is I think there's a time to go fast. Like if you're scouting a new property, buzz through it, learn what's there, where's the creeks, where's the ditches, where's the terrain. Yeah, do that. And when you're doing that, just ignore sign. Like you're literally just going to see the property, see what it looks like. Go back, then start to pick it apart little by little because you saying, "Oh, he found a track and then small twigs." You're not going to find that by following the big doe trail, right? Because you follow that trail and then you're going to miss the one that branches off of it, right? So go learn the obvious sign first, and then go back and be like, "Hey, how can I find this?" Because you're going to run into something good eventually, and I'm. It takes so long to get dialed into that. This spring, I was shed hunting with a buddy, and I'd kind of been through this area before, and I started following a trail that I'd followed before. And when you're shed hunting, you're kind of like, well, I already was on this, so maybe I shouldn't. But then I'm like, no, there's got to be, and I found a set of tracks like you're talking about. There's got to be something different. I started following this trail, stayed on the trail, and it ended up being so subtle, like a branch in the trail that you wouldn't realize it because it went through some thick stuff. So once the trail branched off, it went into some thick and then it opened back up again. Very, very subtle though. And it ended up finding a dead 130 type buck on this trail. But it wasn't, it's not easy to find that subtle stuff. And I'm not dialed like that all the time. You have to, and if you, like you said, if you don't slow down and be like, "Hey, okay, here's the obvious trail, but I'm missing something," and you gotta remember while you're scouting to tell yourself, "Oh, what would a mature buck do?" Or if I was in this area, how would I hide? Or which is a really good. John Eberhart brings that up all the time. If something was trying to kill me, he says that all the time. And I think with all these guys, you have to take bits and pieces of what they say and build it into yourself, but you have to consciously remember it while you're scouting, or you're going to not remember to you're just going to keep following the obvious trail and you're not going to learn something new. So there are different phases to learning details like that. And because of the people that are in hunting that can influence it, like you influence me, Clint influences me, we influence each other. I mean, us three have been scouting together and we all found something different that was valuable to the other person.
Yep.
So it's important to notice the people that make a difference for you, but it's important to want to make a difference for the other people as well. It's kind of a two-way street.
Mm.
um I think especially with deer hunting, it's a pretty easy thing to do to it's such a popular thing, you know. It's a pretty easy thing uh to not think about how you're making a difference for somebody else, or just think you know everything, because you don't. I mean, there's content that we all know. Scrapes are a good place for trail cameras, for example, or things like that. Like there's so much content out there that you can learn this stuff on an accelerated rate. But when it comes to being the person that makes a difference, it's important to maintain humbleness and not be cocky, because then people stop learning from you. What do you
That's
think?
a Dude, that's such a good point. Like, I'll be honest, I don't think I've ever given that any thought of like I, I, I don't know. You kind of just blew my mind a little bit, Aaron. Like I've never sat back and thought like, okay, well, how am I influencing or making a difference for somebody else? Like I don't think I've ever thought about that like on an individual level. Like yes, we did the podcast and we had the YouTube channel and like we focused on educational content to help people, but that's like so broad. There's not a very intimate feel for that. And like what you said hits home a little bit different. Like, okay, when I look at the circle of people that I have, like you and Clint and a couple of the other guys, it's like, how am I influencing them? I don't think I've ever sat back and thought about that. I mean, hopefully I feel like I'm would be a positive influence in some in different ways, but I've never given that any thought, man, to be honest. Like I'm kind of dumbfounded a little bit.
Well, I mean, I think it's so important to talk about it, because maybe you haven't thought of it consciously, but you make a difference for people one on one. You made a
Yeah.
difference for me. You've made a difference for your guys at Exodus. And it's kind of like I'm gonna get a little Jesus on you, Chad. It's kind of like Jesus and his disciples, right? So Jesus influenced all those guys. You know what I mean? All kinds of crazy stuff happened to these guys, but Jesus made a difference in their life. But there's a lot of different ways you can make a difference, right? Jesus spoke to 5,000 people at a time and did a miracle for 5,000 people with a kid that had a fish and some loaves of bread. You know what I mean? So there is a big picture, which is really easy for us to all think about. Like, um, I hope this podcast reaches a lot of people, but I hope the people that I'm close with that listen to the podcast or whatever, I hope I make a difference for them in hunting, fishing, and all those things translate to making them a better person and better for life in general. And this is the kind of stuff I've been thinking about. Maybe it's a little deep, but I don't really care, because that's kind of why you and I are talking. Whenever we talk, we have really good conversations like this, and I'm glad we're doing it. But it's something that I think about a lot, because I think as much as I love to hunt and fish, and I think that it's important to do the how-tos and to learn some strategy. There's a really important detail that, like, I could go to the grocery store, even though I'm cheap and I don't like to spend money on beef. I could go to the grocery store and buy meat, but I like to hunt. And if I'm gonna hunt, I want it to impact a lot of things, not just my freezer. I want it to impact the people that I'm reaching or whatever it is.
Yeah, man. I mean, that is that first of all, that is deep. Um and but deep is good because like it gives substance to who you are, what you're doing, and the people that you're talking with, and those relationships and experiences. But like when I think about that and those different situations, it's like okay, obvious. I do have an obvious influence on my circle, but I don't, man. Like I still go back to like I've never put any purposeful thought of like okay, well. I'm going to have a conversation with Aaron. Like, how am I going to add value or influence him in a positive way? Or like the same thing with Clint. Or like, I guess it's easy if somebody is new. Like, I'll take my neighbor, for example. Handful of years ago, he started to bow hunt. So I was like, you've heard some stories about him in the past, but it's like, okay, well, like, he's new. He's probably going to have a rough go. Like, invite him along. Like, hey, I'm going to go scout the swamp. You want to go with me? I'm going to go shoot my bow. Do you want to come over and shoot for a little bit? So, and like, you think about that, but I've never really thought about it like an in-depth level of like how I influence them or what kind of value I give to them is going to trickle down to like, maybe if that's his son, or maybe like that's another guy like 5 years from now, like he's going to be a new bow hunter, and like the things I'm teaching him or the things I'm sharing with him, like maybe he'll morph that into kind of his unique perspective, and like that's going to influence somebody else. So it's like when you look at the chain reaction, like
It's a
it's
big thing,
deep.
man. It's a big thing because we're talking about all these public land issues lately,
Oh
and
geez.
what what a difference it would make now if those people were influenced to love public land the way we love it. I mean, this is the most unique thing that America has, right? Is our large public land that everybody can go to. And now as hunters, the it's a numbers thing, right? We are a minority and we care about the land the most, probably to some aspect. I'm sure there's people that not there's a lot of people that care about the public land outside of hunting. But imagine if more people cared about hunting. It might not even be a question, or it might not be like Tony Peterson talks about things like, man, he's really afraid of the future of hunting because it's getting so wrapped up in money and who has the most. And now there's a lot less opportunities for a non-resident to go hunt elk. And you and I know that because like we like Colorado and Idaho. And it, now to go to Idaho, yes, it's over the counter, but you need to go through a loophole to be able to hunt with all your friends. And unless they want to go without a tag or whatever it is. Imagine if there was more people that had influence and just cared about making a difference for the other person. It would be more about experience than a kill or who has the most money to make that kill.
Yeah, you're 100% right.
And I know they say things can't be reversed. I think there are things that can be, and if we're doing our jobs to make a difference in hunting, fishing, whatever it happens to be in the things that we love, it'll make a difference in the long run.
Here's the thing with this, and this is something that I realized that kind of Jake Hofer beat home, and I never really understood it, or I guess understood it at depth, or showed particular interest in it, and that's regulation. Like, we have the slow moving regulatory system,
Uh-huh.
um, and it moves so slow, and it's not sexy, and it's not attractive, and everyone's like politics or anti-political, but regulation, not only in just public land. I think that's on the, that is the iceberg right now because it's so
It's the
fresh,
thing.
that
Yep.
victory, right? But regulation is shaping all of this. Regulation shapes what our herd numbers are. It shapes what that opportunity looks like, not from just a tag allocation standpoint, but also from like a land resource standpoint. We need to be, as we want to influence people, like regulation and these things need to be a sense of topic. The challenge is, like, again, it's not sexy. It can be controversial, and we don't do a very good job of even talking about it, like even amongst ourselves. Like, you and I are very big public land advocates, and we talk about it a lot, like
Yeah.
on a one-on-one basis. But like, I don't talk about that much with Clint unless we're in a podcast and it comes up, and I don't talk
Uh-huh.
about it with my neighbor because he's been bow hunting for 4 years. Like, so I think that we do a poor job of communicating how much the regulatory system matters.
Uh-huh.
And I know I've done a poor job of speaking to senators and my district rep up until
Uh-huh.
this last month. And then I'm on the
Uh-huh.
phone with them for 14 days straight on the phone, sending emails, because it was like the battle's now or never. But it
Right.
shouldn't get to that point. I think that's what we're trying to say. Like, if we
Yeah,
had better
totally.
influence, we wouldn't have to be held to the fire like that.
Yeah. And it like I said, the more people you influence, the bigger your army gets, but the less you need the army. right? Because
Exactly.
you just intimidate the intimidator. And it's so important because somebody said something on Facebook randomly in one of some hunting forum or something. They're like, "Oh, you're all pretty quiet now that the challenge is overcome." Like, you said a lot about public land when it mattered the most, which is important, right? It's important to scream out when it's important, when it's like a time. But what if we talked about it before it was even put in the bill? Might not have even been a thing. I think it's important, and it's the hunting part of it is, and I hope it's going away from this, but it really is a pound your chest kind of thing. You know, I love public land. I love to hunt public land because it's a fun. Because I can just move. I can go wherever I want. That's
It's
why I love
adventure.
public land. Yeah. But it's not a pound my chest. I killed a deer on public land. I don't want it to be that. And
Mhm.
this is in part why I am very willing to say, do I want to shoot a 150 on public land? Yes, I do. Do I chase a 150 on public land if I find one? Yes, I do. Am I gonna pass up a 110 when he comes by? Probably not. You know what I mean? Like I care about chasing a big buck and challenging myself to that, but it's not why I'm on the public land to hunt to begin with.
Right.
There's a lot more than just that. Now, if there's 10 deer in my freezer, I will hold out every day until I shoot,
Right.
but until that, like there's a lot that's important to me, and that is not the biggest part of it. It's fun. It's really fun to chase a big buck. It's super frustrating. And when the season's over, even if you didn't kill him, you get really pissed in the moment, right? You're like,
Oh my
and
gosh.
you're like, I'm selling all my crap. But then you give it 2 weeks after the season, man, you're gonna be like, oh, that was
Fired back up.
pretty life altering, and you're ready to go do it again. And this is why we get into that cycle where I'm never doing that again. The next year, you're like, oh well, guess what I'm doing? Like it happens every year. And some years, maybe it's just like, oh, I'm taking a break and I'm shooting a dink. But um, there's just so much we could really talk about this kind of stuff for a long time because you and I've had conversations like this before, and I think
Yeah,
it's important to have buddies like we got.
it is.
Yeah. I want somebody to hear a Chad story before we get off of here. So what is something from fall 2024? It can be a successful hunt, it can be a botched hunt, it can be something you learned, but what's something really memorable that sticks out to you from your last hunting season?
Okay. So this is purely the most memorable, like, and it's ever etched in my brain. Okay. So this is like day 5, day 6 of archery elk hunt. So let me back up. We get out there, we set camp up, and we always have like, we usually set our base camp up next to a road system, like
Mhm.
mountain road system. So all dirt roads, but it gives us the freedom to like go to other places. Like, so we kind of go out and figure out where the elk are before we commit to an area. Is kind of
Uh-huh.
what we do. And well, let me back it. This goes back up even further. So in 2023, a friend of mine was out there and he had like a pretty bad mountain lion encounter. Like he was coming, he was hunting solo at night, and he was come off the mountain and he's down in this bottom. So there's waterway, a small creek, and it's like, you know how it is out there. Like it's so arid when you get water, it's like a explosion of green. So it's like this thick, nasty willow thicket.
Uh,
Um, it actually was in there a couple of days prior to where he was. But anyways, he was on his hands and knees at night, climbed underneath these willows to get to the other side of the creek to get to a trailhead. And he came face to face with a cat, like backed up, had to draw his pistol, like cat was snarling at him, and like it was
Yee.
bad. It was bad, bad.
Yikes.
So the whole time in my mind, I'm like, I don't really like, yeah, the odds of something like that happening are like, it's just, it's slim to none, right? Like they just sit up in a tree or up on a cliff and you walk past them and you don't even know. Like,
Right.
so anyways, last year I just thought the whole time, I'm like, you know what? I got kids, this, like I hunt solo quite a bit. Like because the guys I hunt with are a little bit older. And sometimes when they go back to camp, like I'm staying on the mountain, like I'm out here I'm like, maybe I should just carry a pistol. Like it's probably good to have. So
Yeah.
anyways, I have a little carry pistol, a little 9mm I carry with me now. I keep it on the belt of my pack. So fast forward 2020, 2024, we had an area picked out that there was some animals in. And there was a bigger bull, and not that we were chasing a bigger bull, because we're not like, that's not what we're out there to do. It's like, but there were a couple different herds, and we're like, this is a big area. It's pretty remote. It's hard to get to. I'm like, we could probably go back here and spend a week and not see another human being, you know? So we ride dirt bikes, single track stuff, for probably like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours. And we get to a spot where we can start hiking, and we hike for another couple more hours. It took us all day to get back to this spot. And we finally get camp set up, and we hunt that evening. And it's like we split up because we're trying to, like, get a beat on what's going on, like, again, macro level stuff. And I hear these guys calling, and we're like miles and miles and miles away from a trailhead. And we get back to camp that night, and I was like, John, did you hear those guys calling? And he's like, I ran into a bunch of guys. So anyways, there were some people back there from Texas, and they
Oh.
were only back there for the day, and they were out. So we were like, all right, let's give it another chance. So we get up the next morning, and we start hiking. We get up to this ridge top, and we're on a bunch of elk, and we're chasing elk, and I'm calling, and John's jumping ahead of me, but they're in transition. So it's like we're working our butt off to like kind of cut them off. And we messed with them for a couple hours. And long story short, like, we just could never get anything done. We had a bull within 100 yards a couple times, but it just wasn't right. Like, you're trying to call a bull away from his cows. His cows are going in one direction. Like, it wasn't going to work. So the next morning, we get back up in the same area, and it's quiet. We did not hear a single bugle that morning. So we're like, well, let's just get up to the highest point on this mountain, and we'll glass back into the unit, because we were kind of like on the edge of the unit. We were running out of real estate.
Uh-huh.
So we get up there, dude, and we glass up like 2 miles away, 3 miles away. We glass up like two really big herds, and like, it's first thing in the morning. We're fired up. We're like, yes, like, we're gonna
Yeah.
sit here and watch them for a couple hours, and like, we're gonna figure out which drainage they go on, and then we can go hunt them in the evening, right? So we're sitting there, and we're eating a snack, and John's like, I'm gonna pop over the other side and see what's on the other side, that adventure type scenario. So he goes over, pops over. So I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, I'm glassing these elk. I'm dropping pins on Onyx to figure out what drainage they go into, and all of a sudden I hear a cow, like down off the point that we just climbed up where we had chased those elk yesterday. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, there's a herd coming back up from the same thing they did yesterday. Like, I'm above them. Like, this is gonna be perfect. So I leave my pack on the ground. I grab my bow, grab my bugle tube, and I take off running like a couple hundred yards. Well, I get down there, and I cow called a couple times, and like, I don't hear anything. I don't smell elk. I'm like, man, I think the wind or my imagination was something was getting to me. So I sat down there for 20 minutes, half hour, and I'm like, crap, like, John told me to watch those elk to figure out what drains they were going into. And this time it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock. I'm like, dude, I need to get eyes on these things, because I dropped down far enough where I couldn't see them anymore. I'm like, I need to get back up there to make sure, like, I don't lose sight of which drainage they go into, so we can have something to hunt tonight. So I take off running, and I get back up to my spot. I sit down, and I pull my binoculars up, and I'm like, just catching the last couple cows going into this drainage. I'm like, okay, they're in that drainage. I know where they are.
Huh.
So I binoculars down, and I'm like, for some reason, I like turn my head to look beside me, and I'm in my mind. This is like so ingrained in my mind. I'm like, I thought John left this pack sitting next to me. I'm like, huh, that's weird. I guess he took it. And then, like, for some reason, I like looked over my shoulder, and like, I don't know, 25, 30 feet away from me, I see the head of this cat. I'm
Oh
like, oh my
man.
gosh. I'm like, oh my gosh, there's a bobcat. And I'm like, I stand up, right? My pistol was on my pack, laying there, sitting 12 inches away from me.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's a bobcat. And it's behind me. So I like stand up and turn around. And as I stand up, it stands up. So 10 yards away from me is this full grown mountain lion, like a 150-pound cat. And I'm like, holy shit. So I start yelling at it and waving my hand. I'm like, I was cursing at it pretty hard, honestly. I was like, like yelling. And this thing takes off running, and its tail was like, I don't know, like 3 feet long, 4 feet
Yeah.
long, and like the little black tips on its ears. And I'm like, you dumbass, you have a pistol right next to you, and you're walking towards a mountain lion. I'm like, dude, I was rattled, dude. I was shaking. I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And like, for a second, I followed it, so I knew where it was. I'm like, the thing was 20 feet behind me. Like I had no idea it was there. Like how long was it there? I'm like, I was just like creeped out about the whole thing. I'm like, grab my pack, I take off running to go find John. Um, Needless to say, I was back at camp well before the sun came down that night. But that was the uh, most memorable thing of that trip. Even like I didn't kill last year. John killed one. That was a pretty cool memory. But having that mountain lion experience of like it was incredible, man. Like
Yeah,
I had
that'll
never
stay with
felt a
you.
feeling like that. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah. It's different than bears because you know that thing was hunting you when it's that
Well, I
close.
don't know. Like, was it? I don't know. Like when I saw it, all I saw was in we're in sage country, so it was like tucked down in between like these two sage bushes,
I mean,
and
maybe
like
it
all
didn't.
I could see was its head. I had no
Yeah.
idea,
It might
and
not have it might not have followed you there, but it doesn't matter which way you look at it, it was sitting behind you and you are prey. You know what I mean? I mean, maybe you're just catnip, I don't know, but there could have been a point where that thing was like, I'm hungry now. That's
I mean,
it's
yeah,
wild.
don't know.
That's wild. That's a really good story though. I mean, I'm sure you had quite the same adrenaline dump as from that as
Oh,
you
dude.
did from killing an elk. Not the right
Oh yeah.
direction, but
No,
phew.
I like. I was in the moment. Like I was fine. Like
Yeah.
for some dumb reason, I don't know why. Like, oh, it's a bobcat, and I remember thinking that standing up, and it's like, yeah, it's a bobcat. But afterwards is when it got to me. I'm like, dude, that thing was about to like grab on, latch onto my neck, man.
Yeah. That's why I don't carry a pistol, but I carry bear spray because
Mhm.
I know with a pistol in that moment, I'm not a good shot with a pistol. I know I'm gonna miss. I can shoot like a full size handgun pretty well, but not like a I am terrible shot. So I carry in the woods. I carry bear spray because I'm probably not gonna miss that way. I might
Yeah,
I might get a little burny in my eyes or something, but you know it's nothing my stomach can't handle. So I think yeah,
right.
But dude, this has been really fun. It's a Sunday afternoon. Or a Sunday morning. This was a really good way to spend some time together.
Yeah, it was good. It's been too long since I've seen your face, dude. This was good. I enjoyed it.
I know. We're gonna have to change that at some point. We're gonna have to like hunt turkeys on the state line or something together.
Yeah,
Or maybe we can hunt elk in PA. I don't know.
dude. If one of us draw a tag, yeah, like we would have
Oh
to make
yeah,
that for sure. Yeah,
for sure. For sure. I've got 5 points in the late season and I think 7 points in archery and rifle. So it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen one day.
yeah.
We're getting there. What are your plans for this fall?
So right now, it looks like I'll be archery hunting elk again in September, and then Clint and I are hunting together in November. Well, he's gonna be. We have another planes tag.
Yeah,
He's
he's
making
going
like
for
a
like
whole month.
4 months. Yeah, he's going for like
Yeah,
4 months or something.
I don't. Yeah, and I'll link up with him at some point in November for for a week or a handful of days or whatever that looks like. But that's pretty much it. Like I don't this year is going to be actually kind of easy. My son just broke his arm. So he's on the backside of that now, but he's going to be in the cast for another handful of weeks. So it's like
Yeah,
the extracurricular stuff is kind of curbed for the fall. So
yeah.
yeah,
Well, that'll make it easier.
right.
Cool. All right, dude. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I'll let you know when this comes out, but I'm excited for it.
Sure, man. Yeah.
We're,
Well,
we're gonna have to,
thanks for having me.
yeah, man. It's been great. We're gonna have to do it more often, so I don't go so long without seeing your face.
Absolutely, brother.
I love that. I love that stomped on grin. You still have all your original teeth, though, right?
No.
Missing a couple.
Yeah. I'm missing a couple back here. These two, like, I got like maybe, I don't know, they've been capped and rebuilt so many times. No,
Yeah,
yeah.
we might have to talk about the rodeo the next time around.
We could do that. Yeah, we could do that.
All right, buddy. Good talking
All
to you,
right,
man.
man. I appreciate you.
You too.
Well, that's a wrap in camp. Thanks for tuning in this week. I so much appreciate you listening to me week after week. Uh, you need to check out Chad. He doesn't post that often, I'm not gonna lie. But when he does, it's something pretty meaningful. So check him out. It's Sylvester underscore Chad on Instagram. And then if you would, follow the show. If you don't, though, I do still appreciate you coming back week after week. If you could leave me a review and a rating, let me know what you want to hear. You can do that on the show as well, or you can email me. It's incamppodcast@gmail.com. You can check out the show and what we have going on at incamp_podcast. Thanks for listening. I so much appreciate you guys. It's almost hunting season, and I think you're probably getting pretty close to pulling some elk out. But we have some pretty cool guests coming up. I got some fishing content coming, some hopefully some bird dog stuff. We're gonna be talking some whitetail and elk. I think you're gonna like it. So thanks again. This is In Camp Podcast.